Hi, everybody. Moving along here in my story. Okay, when Lauren got old enough for kindergarten, I decided to keep her home and teach her kindergarten at home. Um, in my church, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they are very big on against public school. You know, they want you to keep your kids in their schools. Um, Too many evil influences around for your kids in public schools. That's what they tell you. And they make you feel guilty, really. Like if you're going to send your kid to public school, like something's seriously wrong with you. So, but it was only kindergarten, and I felt confident that I could teach kindergarten to my own child. And I did it. I didn't get a curriculum or anything like that. I just taught her her ABCs and her numbers. And we always did read to our kids from the time that they would listen. And we did have our family worship every evening. We would always have the kids say their memory verse that they were supposed to learn for church. They would say their memory verse. We would go over their lesson during the week, and we would read them Bible stories. We also had these on the radio back then. Maybe they still have them somewhere. If they do, I hope you let your kids or grandchildren listen, because they were so good. Uncle Charlie's stories. And we didn't have TV, but we did have the radio. And on in the mornings, I think it was Saturday morning when we were getting ready for church, that Uncle Charlie would come on for like a half-hour show, maybe 15 minutes. But he would tell a children's story that had a real good moral and something that he could tie to the Bible in there. And my kids loved them. And we also had books and tapes. Back then it was cassette tapes. And we had books and tapes of Bible stories. And we had other kinds of books that were just fun little kids' books, like Dr. Seuss and stuff like that. The little golden books, that all the kids had, those kind, we had those for the kids. But we always did have Bible time worship where we would pray. The kids would take turns each saying their little prayer out loud with us. And we had that family time after dinner every day. So that was real sweet. And I had the family that I had prayed for years ago, the Christian family that I wanted. 3 kids and a Christian husband and, having family worship. It was my dream come true. So that was all wonderful. And I mean, I felt like we had pretty much perfect life. In the new house that we're at, I liked it better. I was more happy there than in the trailer next to the hog farm. So, taught Lauren kindergarten at home, and that went very fine and well. And then something happened with that preschool that I had Lauren in, the parent participation preschool. I think they stopped doing it. And so Leanne, my friend, who had the little boy that was same age as my boys, we decided to do preschool for them. And so we took turns. I would have Johnny come to my house, or the twins would go to Leanne's house and do preschool, teach them little stuff, do, craft stuff, and, just teach them things. And that was real good. Play-Doh, stuff like that. Water paints, finger paints, all that stuff. Okay, so now Leanne put Lauren, her daughter, into the public school, Hummel School. And Lauren's in the kindergarten with me. Well, then when it came time for first grade, our church, the little country church we're in, there was enough kids. There was 5 kids that were all close to the same age, all needed to be in school. I think they all went right into the first grade. So after kindergarten, I let Lauren go to that school. And they had the teacher, the one teacher, Mrs. Sparks. She was a real certified teacher. She was teaching Sabbath school at church to little ones. And she was going to teach the school, and only 5 kids. There was 3 boys and 2 girls. And it was first grade. Even though a couple of the boys were a little older, she might have did some second grade stuff, but I don't think those other boys had even, none of those kids had started school yet, even though they were a little over age. They had not started yet. So Lauren did that after, it was only a few months into the first grade, and I was realizing that she was missing out. You know, she was just with those same kids that she saw all the time anyway. And even though Mrs. Sparks was probably a good teacher, good person and all that, I felt like she was missing out because she was in that very limited situation. And Leanne's daughter was 1 year older, and she's in the public Hummel school. And Leanne's always telling me about all these different things that Tracy's doing. Tracy's learning, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And I'm thinking, boy, my daughter's really missing out. So I decided pretty much around the middle of the school year that I was not going to keep her in there, but had made a commitment, you know, and Bob was with me on this. He agreed. Bob and I pretty much agreed on everything, but he was the type, he was so laid back, so passive, that he just agreed with everything I said. It's like I had all the ideas, and he just would agree. He never... you know, he did not like to argue at all, and he was just so agreeable. So I don't know if he was, in his mind, he might have been thinking something different sometimes, and he just didn't want to, I guess he didn't care enough to, you know, vocalize any difference. He was just always okay with whatever I said. Yeah, fine, cool, that was it. So, but we had made a commitment, and, you know, they couldn't start the school without that commitment of 5 kids going, and we were paying, you know, something, not much, but, you know, we were paying something. Bob was working in the hospital now, so he was getting a salary that was decent. I mean, we didn't have a lot because we had 3 kids, and he was the only one that was getting real salary. I told you I was making a little bit, but, you know, nothing substantial. So decided to put her in Hummel school for 2nd grade. And what happened when we did that, when I put her to register her and into the 2nd grade, and actually I think like after the first day or week of school or something, teacher called me in, and they just wanted to push her into the 3rd grade because they said, you know, she's reading really well. She's reading like a 6th grader you know, just starting 2nd grade. And they said, you know, she's so advanced, she needs to skip 2nd grade and just go into the 3rd grade. Well, I didn't really like that idea because I felt like a lot of school is social. And I really didn't like the idea of her being in a class with everybody's a year older than her. I kind of felt like it was going to make her, you know, mature a little too quickly socially. So I wanted to keep her with her own age because she was so innocent and enjoyed playing so much with her brothers and all. So I just didn't want to push her, you know, into anything too quickly. But in retrospect, I wish I would have let her go ahead. I think that it probably would have been good for her. But that was the decision. So she was in the 2nd grade, always at the top of her class, really smart. And I did teach, well, in the Vacation Bible School, I taught the primary kids, which were the young kids. Like primary was elementary school. The younger ones, like maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, or 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, something like that. And when I taught that class, she was in my class, and with a lot of other kids, and Lauren always had all the answers. She always knew everything, probably because we spent so much time every evening going with the Bible studies and all. So she always knew all the answers. She could recite chapters from the Bible. Forget about the memory verses. And once in a while they would have her do it up front in the church. And all the older ladies would be so impressed, and the younger ladies, I don't know, I think I think there was a little rivalry because their kids were not recognized like that because they weren't doing it, Anyway, I remember I had to tell Lauren when I was her teacher in Vacation Bible School. I think I might have taught Sabbath school to the young kids once in a while, or 1 year or something, I don't remember. But I remember Lauren being in my class when she was young, and I had to explain to her, I'm sorry, but I cannot let you answer every question, I know you know the answer, and you always raise your hand, and that's so good, but, I have to give the other kids a chance, even if they give the wrong answer. I can't just call on you every time. So I had to explain all that to her, and she was good with all that. I think she got it. But I think those other kids resented her sometimes because they were mean to her sometimes. Maybe it's just a natural kid thing, but like the boys would throw her shoes up on top of the roof of the church, her best shoes, right, that she's wearing to church, and her purse. They would throw her shoes and her purse up on top of the roof, and things like that. They were mean sometimes, but I guess that's normal kid stuff. Anyway, she was in a very limited situation with the school there, with just these few couple kids, that I felt like it was better for her to be in public school, and it really, I'm sure it was not a mistake. So then there was another little girl came to move onto our street that I hadn't mentioned, and her name's Beth. She was just a little cutie, just maybe, I'm thinking she was in between Lauren and the boys, her age. And she used to come over a lot. She had 1 or 2 younger sisters, so I guess her parents were pretty busy. But she was over my house a lot, like almost part of the family for a while there. And she was just a sweetheart. And it's so cool that I made friends with so many of these kids that I taught that I taught in church, that I made friends with them on Facebook. Sad to say, a couple of them we had to delete, and either me or them, over politics. Very, very sad that would break up a friendship, but it did for a few people. So then also there was this other family moved in after the attorney that lived down the street from me, right down the hill. It wasn't even down the street, right at the foot of my hill. He lived there for a while. He got a girlfriend, married her like really quickly. Anyway, they moved out. She had a little girl that was friends with Lauren that would come over and play, but they moved out just down the road a piece, he was still out there in the country. And he'll probably come back into my story because I did want to tell you something else, but it comes a little later. So I will tell you something though. He was so devoted as far as his walk, with God goes, that he actually, he took the Bible very literally. And, there's a place in the Bible where it talks about to pray in your closet, or, to pray in secret. Like, don't make a big deal about your prayers. They're criticizing the hypocrites who pray out loud and pray on the street corners and all that. It's better to pray silently between you and God. You don't need everybody else to hear you. Anyway, he made a bed. He made it himself. A bed that was high enough, like it was about as high as a table. so he could go under it and sit on the floor under his bed to pray. That was his secret place, so to speak, even though, I mean, it wasn't total secret because he showed it to me and the kids, and he used to let the kids go under there and hang out because they thought it was cool. But that was his prayer room under his bed. So he was serious about following the Bible, but I believe he was a little too literal. Because there is literal and figurative, and there's multiple applications once you get into the word. So the lady who moved in took his apartment. She was, again, right about my age, and she had a son who was a couple years older than Lauren, and I started watching him every day after school. So I was getting paid to watch him for a couple hours after school because she worked full time. And he was big enough, like he could get off the bus to come home by himself and get himself a snack and all. But, you know, she didn't want him being alone, basically. He was old enough and responsible enough that probably didn't need a babysitter, but she didn't like the idea of him being alone that much every day. So he became pretty much part of our family, that he would come over my house after school every day. My kids loved him. He became the big brother, and, you know, he loved our family, and that was all really good. One day, because he was allowed to go back and forth to his house if he wanted to get something, but he wasn't supposed to stay there long on his own. So one day he went down to get something at his house, and he comes yelling up to us, and Bob happened to be there at that time. You know, he was off one day during the week because he would have to work one day on the weekend. So he yelled up one day because there was a rattlesnake, right? Again, we had rattlesnakes all around. But this one was interesting because it was actually stuck in the fence. It was a chicken wire fence around this, it used to be a garden that they had down there. And this rattlesnake is probably about 3 feet long. It was a black diamondback, and it was like just woven in between the chicken wire, stuck in there in the fence. So Bob went down and killed that one. I have a picture of that one too, but my pictures are like not easy. I don't know. I have this Epstein-Barr thing, and I get so tired. Everything's such an effort. I don't feel like going through pictures. I don't feel like doing anything most of the time. It's pretty crummy. But when I get around to going through my pictures again, I'll pull out some more and show you. So I will mention that around this time, maybe, that you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses used to come to my door, right? So being that I was home most of the time, you know, I didn't have a regular job, I would talk to them when they came, and they always came by, you know, they go 2 by 2, and I had a lot of literature from my church, right? And they would come and want to give me the Watchtower, and I would pick up something to give them. And I would say, sure, I'll take that. I'll read it. Here's something for you. I'll read this if you read this. They always refused. They would not take anything from me. It's a one-way thing, right? Because they think they know the truth. They think that you will confuse them, mess them up if they read your stuff. So they won't take it. They're trained that way. I told you back, now this would be a couple of years now, when I first really had my born-again experience and really got on fire for God, I wrote these big long letters to everybody close to me in New Jersey, and wrote to my brother, of course. Well, my brother, and I mean, to encourage them to read the Bible, study the Bible, and telling them about, you know, what I learned about Jesus and how real he had become to me and all that. And so my brother took my advice. Now, he's 8 years younger than me, remember? So he took my advice to get into the Word, but he went to the Jehovah's Witnesses and studied with them. So he became a Jehovah's Witness. And his wife, he married another lady, not the one that he had the first baby with, very young. But he married another lady, and they had another child, 1 year older than my twins. Anyway, they started with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So when these Jehovah's Witnesses came to my house, you know, I was interested in talking to them, but they would never talk to me. They didn't want to hear anything I said. But one time, a man came. I think he was with a woman, but he was more open, and I was able to talk with him. The lady was just quiet, and that's often the way it is. It's like maybe one's in training, or maybe just one's more of a talker. I don't know, but so it turned out that somehow we made arrangements for him to come over in the evening and study with my husband and I. So I really wanted to see what my brother was getting into. That's why I was doing this. I was curious about what they were teaching, but especially because of my brother. So Bob and I studied with this guy every Monday night for 2 whole years. We studied with him. Sometimes he would bring his teenage daughter with him, but lots of times he came alone. And we would pray together. We would study. I don't remember exactly our method of studying, but, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses have their own Bible. New World Translation, I think it's called. And so they don't believe that, they believe that their Bible's the only correct one, and all the other Bibles are wrong, and that's why people misunderstand and all that. Well, we agreed that we would study together if, you know, we used our Bible, which was the New International Version, and he could use his. He could read out loud from his, and we would read from mine, and we would compare and talk about the differences and all of that, a give and take. We said if we do an equal give and take, you know, 20 or 30 minutes for you, 20, 30 minutes for us, then we'll study with you. And he agreed. We did that for 2 years, and it was really good. I mean, he was a very likable guy, and it was real comfortable, and I learned a lot about what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, and he learned a lot, I'm sure, also. We ended up, at the end of 2 years, we just agreed to disagree, because he wouldn't admit to be convinced of anything, and we weren't either. So we just agreed to disagree. It was all a good experience. At the end of the 2 years, I told my brother, and he went ballistic. He said that he wanted to report him to the government of the Jehovah's Witnesses. He said he wanted to report him because he came to our house alone sometimes, and he prayed with us. They're not supposed to pray with other people. And I learned that they're not really supposed to eat either with other people. And he never did. And I did offer him sometimes, and he never would take anything to eat. So, very interesting. Anyway, that's the end of my time now. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you come back, and I have a whole lot more to tell. And, you know, it goes up and down with the drama and all that, and there's a whole lot more coming up. So stick with me. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's not. Take care.